North Korea's history is deeply entwined with the legacy of its leadership, the complexities of geopolitics, and the remarkable resilience of its people. The country's isolation, particularly under the reign of the Kim dynasty, has defined its identity in the international arena. But how did North Korea evolve into the totalitarian regime that we know today? To answer that, we must begin at the end of World War II, when the world's power dynamics shifted significantly, laying the groundwork for the creation of the two Koreas. The division of the Korean Peninsula in 1945 came after Japan's defeat in World War II. This division at the 38th parallel was meant to be temporary, dividing the country between Soviet forces in the north and American forces in the south. The goal was to disarm Japan's forces, but it quickly turned into a power struggle between two competing ideologies. In the Soviet-occupied North, communism began to take root, with the Soviet Union actively supporting communist leaders like Kim Il-sung. Kim Il-sung, a former resistance fighter against Japanese imperialism, emerged as a strong leader capable of rallying support among the local population. Meanwhile, in the South, capitalist leaders supported by the United States started consolidating power. This division of ideologies would set the stage for decades of tension. Kim Il-sung's rise to power was not without challenges. He faced competition from other communist leaders, but his loyalty to the Soviet Union and his ability to gain the favor of Joseph Stalin made him the perfect candidate to lead North Korea. Stalin saw Kim as a reliable ally and a useful tool to ensure communist control over the northern part of the peninsula. In 1948, Kim Il-sung officially declared the establishment of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, North Korea, setting the stage for decades of political and military conflict. The Korean War, which broke out in 1950, was the direct result of the ideological divisions between the North and South. Kim Il-sung's decision to invade South Korea was driven by his desire to unify the peninsula under a communist regime. His ambition to create a united Korea, aligned with the Soviet Union and China, was shared by many in the North. But it was also met with fierce resistance from the South and its American allies. The war was brutal. Both sides suffered heavy casualties, and the conflict led to widespread destruction. The United Nations, led by the United States, intervened in support of South Korea, while China and the Soviet Union provided support to North Korea. As the war progressed, it became clear that neither side would be able to achieve a decisive victory, and the war ended in 1953 with the signing of an armistice agreement. Although the Korean War technically ended in a ceasefire, no peace treaty was signed, leaving the peninsula divided and tensions high. The Korean Demilitarized Zone, DMZ, created by the armistice, remains a symbol of the unresolved conflict and the division between the two Koreas. Following the end of the Korean War, Kim Il-sung's leadership was solidified, and he set about building a state centered around his personality. His rule was characterized by absolute control over all aspects of life in North Korea. The concept of yushae, or self-reliance, became the guiding principle of the regime. This ideology called for North Korea to stand independent of foreign influence, particularly in matters of economy, culture, and defense. Kim Il-sung's government was totalitarian, and dissent was not tolerated. He established a pervasive personality cult, elevating himself to almost godlike status. propaganda permeated every aspect of society, with Kim's image appearing on billboards in schools and even in everyday life. The government's policies were driven by the idea of creating a self-sufficient state, one that would not rely on foreign aid or trade. The regime's militarization was another key aspect of Kim Il-sung's rule. He prioritized the development of a strong military force and implemented a policy of military first, Songun. This was meant to ensure that North Korea could defend itself against any external threats, particularly from the United States and South Korea. Kim Il-sung's death in 1994 marked the end of an era, but the Kim dynasty did not end with him. His son, Kim Jong-il, took over the leadership of North Korea. The transition of power from father to son was not a smooth process. Kim Jong-il had to consolidate his power, particularly after the death of his father. His rise to power was marked by political purges and a consolidation of military support. Under Kim Jong-il, North Korea continued its policy of isolation. The country became even more militarized, with an increasing focus on developing nuclear weapons. Kim Jong-il's regime pursued nuclear weapons as a way to deter foreign intervention and ensure the survival of the regime. By the early 2000s, North Korea conducted its first successful nuclear test, a move that further alienated the country from the international community. International sanctions and condemnation followed, but Kim Jong-il's regime was undeterred. The country's pursuit of nuclear weapons continued, and the international community struggled to find a diplomatic solution. Kim Jong-il's death in 2011 marked the beginning of a new era for North Korea, with his son Kim Jong-un taking the reins. Kim Jong-un's ascension to power in 2011 was met with skepticism, especially given his youth and inexperience. Many analysts wondered whether he would be able to maintain the grip on power that his father and grandfather had established. However, Kim Jong-un quickly demonstrated his ability to consolidate power through a series of purges, including the high-profile execution of his uncle Jong Song-taek in 2013. Kim Jong-un continued his father's policies, focusing on military strength and nuclear weapons development. However, he also made efforts to engage in diplomacy, particularly with the United States. In 2018 and 2019, he held historic summits with U.S. President Donald Trump, where they discussed the potential for denuclearization. While the summits generated much international media attention, they ultimately resulted in little meaningful progress toward peace or nuclear disarmament. Despite these diplomatic efforts, Kim Jong-un's leadership continued to focus on the military and maintaining the regime's grip on power. The country's human rights abuses persisted, and sanctions remained in place, further isolating North Korea from the global community. Life in North Korea is tightly controlled by the state, which dictates nearly every aspect of daily existence. The regime maintains control over the economy, media, education, and movement, ensuring that the population is largely isolated from the outside world. State control and class system. The North Korean government controls most industries and limits private enterprise. Citizens are classified into a hereditary class system called Songbun, which determines access to education, jobs, and living areas. The elite live in Pyongyang, while those in lower categories face economic hardship. The Kim family personality cult. The Kim family's personality cult is central to North Korean life. Citizens are taught to revere the leadership, with portraits of Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-il, and Kim Jong-un displayed everywhere. The regime's image is reinforced through daily rituals and government-controlled media, which promotes the leader's greatness. Propaganda and media control North Koreans have no access to foreign media or free internet. All news is filtered through state-run outlets like the Korean Central News Agency, which only reports on positive aspects of the regime. The media serves as a tool to maintain control and reinforce loyalty to the Kim family. Restrictions on movement and freedom of expression. Travel within North Korea is heavily restricted, and citizens need government permission to move. Expressing dissent can result in severe punishment, including imprisonment in labor camps or execution. Freedom of expression is strictly limited, and religious practices are forbidden, with state-approved churches serving as propaganda tools. Military-first policy and militarization. The military-first policy, Songun, places the military at the center of society. The army is prioritized in all aspects of life, and the regime's military power is emphasized through frequent parades and displays. Military service is compulsory for young men, and even children are taught militaristic values. Juche ideology and self-reliance. Juche, or self-reliance, is the guiding ideology of the regime, aimed at making North Korea independent from foreign influence. While the country strives for economic self-sufficiency, it remains reliant on aid and has faced food shortages and economic struggles. Despite these challenges, the regime uses Juche to justify its isolationist policies. North Korea's foreign relations have been shaped by its quest for survival and nuclear deterrence, maintaining a delicate balance between isolation and strategic alliances. From its early years, the regime relied on the Soviet Union and China for support, but Kim Il-sung's self-reliance ideology led to occasional tensions with both powers. China remained a critical ally, though the relationship has been strained at times due to North Korea's provocations. The pursuit of nuclear weapons, particularly under Kim Jong-il, marked a new chapter in North Korea's international relations. The country's nuclear tests beginning in 2006 resulted in global condemnation and heavy sanctions. Despite this, North Korea has continued to develop its weapons program, leveraging its nuclear capabilities to bolster its regime's security and political leverage. Sanctions, largely imposed by the United Nations, the US, and other countries, have isolated North Korea economically, but China remains its main economic partner. While China supports sanctions, it also advocates for dialogue and stability in the region. Russia has played a lesser role but remains a diplomatic partner. North Korea's relationship with the United States has been particularly contentious. Diplomatic efforts such as the 2018 and 2019 summits between Kim Jong-un and US President Donald Trump offered moments of hope for denuclearization. However, these talks ultimately led to little change, with North Korea insisting on security guarantees and sanctions relief, while the US demanded complete denuclearization. Relations with South Korea and Japan have been similarly complex. Though there have been moments of engagement, such as inter-Korean summits, North Korea's missile tests and provocations have often disrupted peace efforts. Japan remains particularly concerned about North Korea's missile capabilities. Looking ahead, North Korea's future in global politics is uncertain. Its nuclear ambitions and defiance of international pressure continue to make it a pariah state. Yet the regime's resilience suggests it will remain a significant player in East Asia's geopolitical landscape. The involvement of key powers like China, Russia, the US, and neighboring countries will shape whether North Korea remains isolated or finds a path toward greater international integration. North Korea, under the rule of the Kim family, remains one of the most isolated and secretive regimes in the world. Despite the challenges it faces, whether economic struggles, food shortages, or international sanctions, the regime has maintained an iron grip on power for over 7 decades. The country's pursuit of nuclear weapons, alongside its human rights violations and repressive policies, ensures that North Korea will continue to be a significant player in global geopolitics. The Kim family's ability to maintain control over the country, despite overwhelming isolation, is a testament to the resilience and determination of the regime. The country's repressive tactics, combined with the cult of personality and a rigid class system, have kept the population in check while allowing the leadership to continue its militaristic and self-reliant policies. As the Kim dynasty enters its 3rd generation under Kim Jong-un, North Korea's future remains uncertain. The world watches as tensions between North Korea and the international community continue to simmer. While diplomatic efforts have occasionally emerged, they have failed to bring about lasting change. North Korea's pursuit of nuclear power, its severe internal controls, and its defiance of global norms suggest that the country will continue to resist external pressure and shape the global landscape according to its own vision. In the end, North Korea's story is one of survival, defiance, and determination. It is a country that has lived in the shadows of world politics, continually challenging the global order while remaining steadfast in its commitment to its own version of reality. The world watches, but North Korea continues to march to the beat of its own drum.